no rest, but returned immediately to Geneva. Scarcely did I speak, and while my haggard and wild appearance awoke intense alarm, I dismissed the concern around me and dedicated myself to my hateful task. To England, therefore, I was bound, and it was understood that my union and marriage with Elizabeth should take place immediately upon my return. I spent some months in London as I gathered materials to fulfill my hellish promise. And then I received an invitation from Clerval to Scotland. How I longed to be with my friend again. I wished to view again mountains and streams and prolong the completion of my work. Accordingly, I packed up my chemical instruments, resolving to finish my labors in some obscure nook in the northern highlands of Scotland. It was agreed. Clerval and I would rendezvous in Perth, and I fixed on one of the remotest of the Orkney Islands as the scene of my labors. But as I proceeded in my work, it became every day more horrible to me. I sat one evening in my laboratory as the moon rose from the sea. I was now about to form another being who might become 10,000 times more malignant than her mate. Was I buying my own peace at the price of the whole human race? And then I saw it, the object of my thoughts. By the light of the moon, a ghastly grin wrinkling his lips, the demon stood at the open casement. His face expressed the utmost extent of malice and treachery. I thought what madness my promise of creating another like to him. And trembling with passion, I tore to pieces the thing which was to be his mate. The wretch saw me destroy the creature, and with a howl of devilish despair, advanced through the window. Do you dare to break your promise? Slave, I before reasoned with you, but I am your master now. Obey. Begone! I am firm, devil. Leave me! Man, you shall repent of the injuries you inflict. I go. But remember, I shall be with you on your wedding night. I would have seized him, but he turned and sprang from the house. All was again silent, but his words rung in my ears. My wedding night. Was that my destiny? To die on my own wedding night? The night passed in silence, and as the sun rose from the ocean, I unlocked the door of my laboratory. I must dispose of the remains of the half-finished creature whom I had destroyed. I put the relics of my work into a basket and determined to throw them into the sea. Hours passed in misery, and as the moon rose, I put my basket aboard a little skiff and sailed out about 4 miles from the shore. Casting my basket into the sea, I cursed the monster and myself. To clear my mind, I resolved to prolong my stay on the water. And fixing the rudder in a direct position, I stretched myself at the bottom of the boat and fell asleep. When I awoke, I found that the waves had driven me far from the coast. Wind whipped my sails. I endeavored to change my course, but could not. I was at the mercy of the sea. I felt sick and hardly able to hold the rudder, when suddenly I saw a line of high land toward the south. My heart bounded with joy as I maneuvered the boat to safety. I fixed the boat and addressed several people who had crowded around me. Will you be so kind as to tell me the name of this town and inform me where I am?
You will know that soon enough.
Why do you answer me so roughly?
Ah, it is the custom of the Irish to hate villains. Come, sir, you must follow me to the magistrate. A gentleman was murdered here last night, and you'd best be giving an account of yourself.
I was exhausted, but followed the man in silence, ready to prove my innocence. The magistrate's home was the best in the town. The magistrate appeared a benevolent gentleman, as he explained that a young man had been found strangled on the same beach that had been my refuge. There was no mark of violence, he said, except the black mark of fingers on his neck. At this, my limbs trembled. I was taken to view the body, and I entered the room where the corpse lay, and was led up to the coffin. I feel yet parched with horror. The examination, the presence of the magistrate and witnesses, passed like a dream from my memory when I saw the lifeless form of Henry Clerval stretched before me.
Two I have already destroyed, and now you, Clerval, my friend, my benefactor.
I fell delirious into a fever, and lay for 2 months on the point of death. My ravings, as I afterwards heard, were frightful. They went beyond guilt to extreme despair. But I was doomed to live, and in time found myself, as awaking from a dream, in a prison, stretched on a wretched bed, surrounded by jailers. And then I was told that my father had come to me. His appearance was like that of a good angel, assuring me that he and Ernest and Elizabeth were all well, and that my health was their only concern. I gradually recovered my health, and in my father's presence I awaited my court trial. During the trial it was proved that I was on the Orkney Islands at the hour the body of my friend was found. I was proved innocent. But a fortnight later, as we returned to Geneva, the image of dear Clerval hung over me. In my mind, my loved ones were my salvation. I cried as Elizabeth welcomed me with warm affection. Tears were in her eyes as she beheld my emaciated frame and feverish cheeks. As the days passed, Elizabeth alone drew my mind from sorrow. It was agreed then that after our union, we should proceed to Lake Como in Italy and spend our first days of happiness there. In the meantime, I armed myself with pistol and dagger for even brief excursions away from home. Our wedding day dawned, and after the ceremony was performed, we commenced our journey by water. The sun had sunk beneath the horizon as we landed, and as I touched the shore, I felt those cares and fears revive, which were soon to clasp me and cling to me forever. When we landed, we retired to the inn. Suddenly, a heavy storm of rain descended. I had been calm during the day, but so soon as night obscured the shapes of objects, 1,000 fears arose in my mind. I remained watchful and grasped my pistol to my chest. Suddenly, I reflected how fearful the combat which I momentarily expected would be to my wife, and I earnestly entreated her to retire, resolving not to join her until I had overcome my enemy, who vowed to be with me on my wedding night. She left me, and I continued some time walking up and down the passages of the house, inspecting every corner that might afford a retreat for the demon. Suddenly, I heard Elizabeth's shrill and dreadful scream. As I heard it, the whole truth came to my mind. Her scream was repeated, and I rushed into her room. Great God! Why did I not then expire? Why am I here to relate the destruction of the best hope, the purest creature of earth? She was there, lifeless, thrown across the bed, her head hanging down, the murderous mark of the fiend's grasp on her neck. While I still hung over her in the agony of despair, I happened to look up. The window shutter had been thrown back, and with horror I saw at the open window a figure the most hideous and foul. A grin was on the face of the monster. He seemed to jeer as with his fiendish finger he pointed towards the corpse of my wife. I rushed towards the window and fired, but he eluded me, and running with the swiftness of lightning, he plunged into the lake. A crowd from the inn gathered at our door, and at my mad encouragement, accompanied me to the lake to search for the monster. We searched in vain for hours, and as I fell in utter exhaustion, I seemed to hear the fiend's laughter echo across the water. With the light of day, my body revived. I could do no more for my dear Elizabeth, but I had to save Father and Ernest. Hiring men to row, I set off for Geneva once more. I arrived at Geneva. My father and Ernest yet lived, but the former was so terribly shocked at tidings that I bore that he died in my arms. What then became of me, I know not. I lost sensation, for they had called me mad, and during many months, as I understood, a solitary cell became my habitation. As I regained my senses, I vowed on Elizabeth's grave a resolution to pursue the destroyer to death. Now my wanderings began, which are to cease with life. I have traversed a vast portion of the earth, and have endured all the hardships which travelers are wont to meet. How I have lived, I hardly know. Many times have I stretched my failing limbs upon the sandy plains and prayed for death. But revenge kept me alive. I have followed the fiend through the windings of the Rhone, moved across the blue Mediterranean, and searched amidst the wilds of Tartary and Russia. My life as it passed thus was indeed hateful to me, and it was during sleep alone that I could taste joy. In sleep I saw my friends, my beloved Elizabeth, and my country again. What his feelings were, whom I pursued, I cannot know. Sometimes he left marks in writing on the barks of trees, or cut in stone, that guided me and increased my fury. And follow him I did, over the frozen ocean, for weeks of heartbreaking pursuit. In this manner, many appalling months passed. Several of my dogs died, and I myself was about to die when I saw your vessel riding at anchor, holding forth hope of succor and life. Oh, must I die and he yet live? If I do, swear to me, Walton, that he shall not escape, that you will seek him and satisfy my vengeance in his death. Thrust your sword into his heart. I will hover near and direct the steel aright. Thus a week passed away, while Walton listened to the strangest tale that ever imagination formed. His thoughts and every feeling of his soul had been drunk up by the interest in his guest. Then suddenly, Walton's attention was taken from Frankenstein. His ship was surrounded by mountains of ice, which threatened at every moment to crush the vessel. Frankenstein's life held by a slim filament. Suddenly, the ice began to move, but still they could do nothing. And Frankenstein lived no longer. Walton's tears flowed, and his mind was overshadowed by a cloud of despair. And yet, in the depths of his misery, Walton heard a human voice from Frankenstein's cabin. He entered, and above the coffin, saw a form which he still cannot describe without a shudder. As the monster hung over the body, his face was concealed by long locks of ragged hair. One vast hand was extended, in color and texture like that of a mummy. When he heard Walton's approach, he ceased to utter exclamations of grief and sprang towards the door. Walton called on him to stay.
That is also my victim. Oh, Frankenstein, what good does it that I now ask you to pardon me? I, who destroyed you by destroying all you loved? Alas, he is cold. He cannot answer me. I am alone. Fear not that I shall be the instrument of future evil. My work is done. I shall quit this vessel and collect wood for my funeral fire, and consume to ashes this miserable body. Where can I find rest but in death? Farewell!
He sprang from the cabin window as he said this, onto the ice raft which lay close to the vessel. He was soon borne by the waves and lost in darkness and distance.